Oh, I've got something freaky to tell you right now. NASA's Kepler telescope has identified an odd star, or is it a star, that is giving astronomers pause and raising questions about the possibility of an extraterrestrial civilization. A distant star's light is flickering due to a tight band of matter circling it. And that would normally mean that the star, maybe it's young, maybe it's old, is just doing its business, but it's making scientists wonder about the possibility of an alien civilization that has built a megastructure around the star, harnessing its energy and power. Dr. Michio Kaku, theoretical physicist and professor at the City College of New York, joins me. Welcome back, Doctor.
Welcome.
So let us talk about this. What is this flickering star business?
This story could be as big as the discovery of the wheel.
What?
The invention of fire.
What?
We're talking about a story of all stories.
Yes.
Because this could change our understanding of our place in the universe. A megastructure perhaps bigger than a planet that's controlled by an intelligence. Or the story could be a dud.
Okay, so basically there's this optical telescope that has been looking for dimming starlight, and it has found something where the light dims by about 20%. Normally light only dims by 1%. What does that mean?
That means that we scientists don't know what the hell we're talking about.
Oh, great.
It means that we're clueless as to what could cast a shadow bigger than Jupiter. Think about it for a moment. If this object is artificial, it means that a civilization has been able to manipulate an object bigger than Jupiter.
And how much bigger is Jupiter than the Earth?
Oh, you're talking about thousands of times bigger than the planet Earth, and this is even bigger than Jupiter. Now, we're going through the usual suspects. Is it a comet? Is it a meteor? Is it an asteroid? And one by one, we've ruled out all the logical possibilities.
It's not a pulsar.
The last possibility is that it's artificial. And if it is, it's an object bigger than a planet that's casting a shadow in front of the mother star. It could be a Dyson sphere. An object.
Now explain what that is, because I read that in your notes, and I don't quite understand. I'm not familiar with a Dyson sphere.
A Dyson sphere is built by civilization that can play with stars, that envelop the entire star with a shell, absorbing all the starlight. You would have to be thousands of years ahead of us. A Type 1 civilization, for example, just harnesses the power of the atmosphere. Weather control, for example, like Buck Rogers maybe. This is a Type 2 civilization, perhaps, that can play with stars, like in Star Trek. The Federation of Planets would be Type 2. Then what is Type 3? Galactic, like Star Wars would be a Type 3 civilization. Now, what are we in comparison? Do we play with the weather? Do we play with stars? No, we're Type 0. We get our energy from coal and from oil, dead plants basically. So this civilization, if it is one, will be thousands of years ahead of us.
And it's really far away. It's about 1,500 light years away. There are 5.8 trillion miles in every light year. So, I mean, it's almost impossible to calculate how far this thing is. But now, the craziest thing that you told me before we started, the Kepler telescope is offline. It can't take in any of that data anymore, so we cannot learn anything more about this anomaly.
That's right. The Kepler satellite, which detected this object, this mega object in space, is offline because the gyroscopes basically broke, and it cannot align itself now and take pictures.
And we can't bring it back to fix it, so what does that mean?
Well, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you would say that when the aliens figured out that we're on to them, they crippled our telescope so we can't get any more information. However, what some people are saying now is we should then point our radio telescopes to listen in on their I Love Lucy and their Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah.
That is their television and radio. That's how we will do it. That's how we'll do it the next year.
All right. Well, let us do that. Let us train our radio telescopes on the far reaches of the known universe and figure out if we're going to have company. If so, are they going to obliterate all of us?
That's right. Remember, Carl Sagan said remarkable claims require remarkable proof. We want remarkable proof because this is a remarkable claim, a claim of the century.
Last question. We only have 5 seconds. What does your gut tell you? Aliens or no?
I think it could be a highly irregular solar system, a bizarre solar system with multiple planets eclipsing each other in random ways.
Maybe there are things about the heavens that we don't even know, and we don't need aliens to further explore. Thank you so much, Dr. Kaku.
My pleasure.
Very good. Oh, listen to this, baby. We may be visiting aliens sooner than you can imagine. Stephen Hawking, Mark Zuckerberg, and a Russian entrepreneur named Yuri Milner are teaming up on a program called Starshot, which will send a swarm of iPhone-sized probes, teeny tiny ships, to Alpha Centauri, that is our nearest solar neighbor outside, or our nearest star neighbor outside of our solar system, in search for intelligent life. And here to explain it all, it's Dr. Michio Kaku, theoretical physicist and professor at the City College of New York. Welcome back.
Glad to be on the show.
So I can't think of a person. You don't have to be an astrophysicist or an astronomer to look up in the night sky and think, how do we get there? And we've all conceived of these giant spaceships piling at us millions and billions of miles away. But what's happening with this project?
Well, Captain Kirk, watch out, because we're going to send starships throughout the universe the size of a postage stamp.
Even smaller than an iPhone.
That's right. Now, why does the Enterprise have to be so big? Why do rockets have to be so big? Because they have to carry their own fuel. So why not put the fuel on the ground and with lasers shoot this fuel into outer space to propel postage stamps, nanobots with artificial intelligence to the nearby stars. This is with off-the-shelf technology.
Yeah.
That's what's so novel. We don't have to wait for warp factor 5 warp engines. We don't have to wait for black holes. No, off-the-shelf technology.
And they're going to go 100 million miles per hour, is that true?
They're going to go up to 20% the speed of light.
Okay.
So to the nearest star in just 20 years. This is amazing that within perhaps our lifetime, perhaps our children's lifetime, we may get first images of a planet going around another star system.
So once those packets get there in 20 years, how long will it take for them to beam some of the images and information back to Earth?
Well, each postage stamp has sensors, TV cameras, and all sorts of devices so that when they reach Alpha Centauri, they can radio the message back to Earth, and then it would take about 4 years.
Okay.
So once they reach the nearest star, it would take then 4 years to then radio back the information.
Now, this team, including a former head of NASA's Ames Research Center, has said it's going to take 20 years from now until they actually launch, and then another 20 years. So
what's the bottleneck?
Yeah.
We have off-the-shelf technology today. The problem is the energy of the laser beam. You need 100 gigawatts, which is about 100 nuclear power plants.
Wow.
Generating power of a battery of laser beams shooting into outer space and then hitting a sail, and then hitting the sail, which then pushes the sail to 20% the speed of light. That's the problem. The problem is we have to have huge lasers on the planet Earth.
Yeah.
Eventually, maybe
And
on
we
the
don't
moon.
have anything like that right now, do we? What's the closest thing we have to something with that much power, aside from a nuclear power plant?
Well, in California, Livermore National Laboratories, we have a laser fusion machine, a gigantic machine which uses laser beams to create a mini hydrogen bomb right there, okay? However, that only works for a fraction of a second. We have to have 100 nuclear power plants of energy for 2 minutes. 2 minutes to then shoot this thing up to 20% the speed of light.
Yeah, but people still are really kind of sketched out by nuclear power. You know, especially after Fukushima, people are worried about what can happen, the what-ifs, if there are accidents and meltdowns and natural disasters.
Right. Now, it doesn't have to be a nuclear power plant. It could be a coal plant. It could be an oil-fired plant.
Yeah.
Whatever. We need 100 gigawatts of power to energize the laser beam.
Yeah.
And then you have to aim it just right. Because if you aim it wrong, it'll miss Alpha Centauri by several.
And then it's going to start blowing stuff up. Now, in Alpha Centauri, do scientists believe that there is something like Earth, that there is a habitable planet there, possibly with people just like you and I having the same kind of conversation?
Well, Alpha Centauri is a strange system. First of all, it's a triple star system, just like in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Not one, not two, but 3 stars going around each other. And we think
including
there's a
Beta
planet.
Centauri.
Well, we think there is a planet there, but it's not confirmed yet. But we think there could be a planet going around.
How big?
Perhaps Earth-size. But again, we get contradictory information. It's not been verified yet. But one study shows that there could be a planet going around a triple star system.
And what would we need to verify?
Well, we have to verify its size, whether or not it has like oxygen capable of carrying life, whether it's what is called the Goldilocks zone. Not too close, not too far from the mother sun, but just right to have liquid water, which is the universal solvent.
But it's got 3 mother suns. It's so modern. What a wonderful family.
Right. Remember in Star Wars, you look up and you see 2 stars in the sky? There you would see 3 stars in the sky.
Hot, but it'd never be black. You'd never get any sleep because there'd always be a sunrise going. All right, Dr. Kaku, thank you very much for coming by. Dare to dream.
Yeah, right.
And
boldly go.
That's right.
We're talking starships now.
Well, maybe the aliens are already here and they can look over the plans and be like, nope, yeah, that's it. Hopefully. All right, thanks again. Come back soon.
Okay, well, let's take the next listener phone call. Hello, this is Science Fantastic. You're on the air. Any comments or questions?
My name is Neil Baker. I'm in Kennewick, Washington. I listen to KTCR. And I'm one of those people, actually, I might be one of those kooks that doesn't think we went to the moon. I don't think I'm a kook. I think I've got good reason to think we didn't go to the moon. And they basically boil down to 2 reasons. One is that the spacesuits that the astronauts are in are impossible, and the cooling system is preposterous. The nickel porous plate ice sublimators that they allegedly use to cool themselves, you can't find any information on them. We've been allegedly using them for 50 years. There's nothing in a textbook about them. There's hardly anything on the internet about them, and you've never seen a demonstration of one in operation, which could easily happen in a high vacuum chamber that NASA allegedly has. The suits are impossible because those kinds of suits with the flexible membrane would be impossible to operate in a high vacuum, and that could be proven very easily on Earth also with the use of high vacuum chamber, which still isn't used either. So I think the moon landings are fake. I think the Gemini spacewalks are fake. I think the International Space Station is fake, and I think the alleged spacewalks at the Hubble Space Telescope are fake. Which I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, well, you ask a mouthful, so let's try to break it down one by one. First of all, there is that famous videotape that says that, the moon program was a fake from start to finish, and they list many examples. The main examples are not actually the ones you mentioned, but let me tackle all of them. The first main criticism about our going to the moon is the flag. The moon has no air. There's no wind on the moon. We learned that in elementary school. But there are our astronauts saluting a waving flag. You've all seen that picture. It's on many a website. Our astronauts saluting a fluttering American flag. Say the critics, obviously a fake because flags do not flutter on the moon because there's no wind on the moon. Another thing they say is look at the shadows. If you look at the shadows, you see not 1 but 2. And the shadows seem to be at different angles. Now, how can you get 2 sets of shadows unless it's a Hollywood movie set? A Hollywood movie set. Then you have a bunch of lights, and of course the camera crew don't keep track of the shadows, and one of them slipped out, and there it is, our astronauts on the moon with 2 sets of shadows, obviously Hollywood shadows, nothing to do with a real moonwalk. And you mentioned several others, but let's take them one at a time. First of all, the flag that flutters on the moon is not really a flag at all. It's made out of tinfoil, for God's sake. Look at the video. In one video, you actually see the astronauts putting the flag on the moon, and you clearly see that it's made out of tinfoil. It's solid. It's not a flag at all made out of cloth. So, of course, it doesn't flutter. It's actually bent out of shape precisely to give the illusion that it's fluttering. But, of course, wind does not blow on the moon. Also, if you think about it, if you have a starry night with the moon, of course there are 2 sets of shadows you can see because the moon also casts a shadow. Well, Earthshine is much brighter than moonshine. And as a consequence, of course, you're going to get multiple shadows on the moon because you have sunshine and you have earthshine, which is, as I mentioned, much greater than moonshine. And then you mentioned suits and cooling systems, and hey, let's back up a bit. First of all, on Earth, we have many vacuum systems by which we can test our spacesuits. In fact, I took a film crew from the Science Channel. We flew out to Ohio, where we have one of the world's largest vacuum chambers. We test entire booster rockets, not just little spacesuits. We test entire booster rockets on this gigantic area, much bigger than a football field.
which has a vacuum. You can pump all the air out, and yes, you can test spacesuits. Yes, you can test booster rockets, for God's sake. Forget spacesuits. So we know that these systems can operate in the vacuum of space, not to mention the fact that the Chinese have sent astronauts in space. We're not the only ones who can do this. The Russians have done it, of course. We've done it. The Chinese have done it. Pretty soon the Japanese and the Indians are going to be doing it. They don't see any problem at all. Plus, you say that we don't have a space station out there, but hey, you can actually see it. You don't have to believe it. You can get the coordinates and actually look at it with binoculars as it sails overhead. With radar, with sightings, we know that these things actually are up there in outer space. Now, also, some people think that we never brought moon rock back from the moon. Well, I had a chance to actually look at moon rock close up with a microscope. I was getting my PhD at the University of California at Berkeley, which got some of the moon rocks from NASA, and personally, I had a chance to look at them under a microscope, and I was shocked. Instead of ordinary rock, you had mini craters, micro craters, craters inside craters, inside craters, inside craters. The only way you could have that is with the vacuum of outer space. So in other words, we really do know that moon rock taken by the astronauts is real moon rock, because these are ancient meteorite impacts all the way down to the size of a cell.
A crisis of leadership. We've been talking about this all week. But what if there was some sort of outer space crisis? An alien invasion sounds crazy, perhaps, but then who thought we'd ever see the stock market swing 5% a day all week long? So maybe it's not as far-fetched as it sounds. If aliens invaded, who would step up to lead us in that fight, and could we even win? That's just one of the questions the Discovery Channel's new series, Curiosity, looks at. Joining me now is physics professor Michio Kaku, who is a consultant for the series. Professor, welcome. The biggest question before we get any invasion is, do aliens even exist, and how would we know?
Well, the Kepler satellite currently orbiting in outer space has identified about 50 planets that seem very much Earth-like. In fact, every week we discover another Jupiter-sized planet in outer space. Now, to be sure, most of them probably have no more than microbial life, just germs. But a few of them may have intelligent life, perhaps even more advanced than what we have on Earth.
Now, so how does this actually work? When Discovery decided they were going to do a show on alien invasions, your phone rings because you're on the sort of speed dial for theoretical physicists who can help them do the war game for how this might play out?
Well, believe it or not, we physicists have actually studied the question of what happens if we do encounter a hostile advanced civilization in space. And Hollywood gets it all wrong. Hollywood assumes that the aliens are maybe 100 years more advanced than us, and if only we had a secret weapon, we can defeat the aliens. Wrong. Either the aliens don't bother with us because we're simply too primitive, or if they do invade, it'll be more like Bambi versus Godzilla.
And why do you say that? What techniques will they have that we can't even imagine?
Think of the fact that they could be 1,000, 1,000,000 years more advanced than us. Realize that the universe is 13.7 billion years old, and so it's conceivable that they can have weapons that we can't even conceive of. Now, in my own point of view, look at how the barbarians eventually defeated the Romans. The barbarians didn't have a secret of weapons by which they defeated Caesar and the Romans. No, they learned technology from the Romans. They imported technology. They learned the technology of the Romans and then used it against the Roman Empire. That's how they won.
So then how would we, I know it sounds implausible, but if something like this were to happen, how would we defend ourselves as a planet?
Well, initially, we would have to probe them to find out exactly how advanced they are. Do they have nuclear weapons? Do they have radio and radar communications technology? Or do they have a whole new generation of weapons that we can't even conceive of? Now, remember that for the most part, alien civilizations in outer space are not going to come to plunder us because there are plenty of uninhabited planets out there with resources. So for the most part, they're going to leave us alone. However, if, on the other hand, one day they do attack, we have to be prepared for the fact that they're going to overwhelm us in the opening shots of a war.
Well, so what do we do?
Well, first we have to study the question. We have to send up more Kepler satellites. We have to eavesdrop on conversations in outer space between alien civilizations. This is something that we haven't even done yet. We have yet to find a single advanced civilization or life in outer space. But sooner or later, we will. The first step is to monitor them, to understand what level of civilization they have, the kinds of weapons. Second, perhaps even begin to initiate a dialogue. Now, of course, that's dangerous if they are warlike, in which case we may want to sit back and simply analyze their weaponry.
Now, why do we assume that they're going to be hostile? Isn't there a chance that any aliens we encounter could come to us more like E.T. and less like Predator?
Yeah, personally, I think for the most part, alien civilizations that are 1,000,000 years ahead of us have had 1,000,000 years to sort out racial, sectarian, and religious differences among themselves. So I think for the most part, they're going to be peaceful. And for the most part, they're going to find resources on uninhabited planets. Why bother with the Earth with restive natives when you have all these other planets loaded with natural resources and nobody lives on them? However, we do have to plan for the day that maybe a few of them could be hostile.
Now, I'm wondering if there can't be an upside to all this. I'm a big fan of the original Star Trek series, and it was only when, there were alien civilizations that seemed to challenge the Earth that you found that the Earth got its act together for the kind of global governance that all the visionaries say we need that if we're going to deal with climate change, if we're going to deal with all the modern issues, global finance, where the sovereignty of individual nations is actually a political barrier to solving these big problems. So can there be an upside to the alien threat?
Believe it or not, when President Ronald Reagan met Mikhail Gorbachev, we now know during the transcripts of the meeting that he said that if we were ever attacked by the Martians, you and me, the Soviets and the capitalist U.S., would be allies in the fight against the Martians. Well, that's how Ronald Reagan looked at it, and believe it or not, there's some truth to it. If we are faced with a common enemy in outer space, it would indeed help to unite the Earth, just the way Ronald Reagan said.
All right, Michio Kaku, theoretical physicist and an advisor to the new Discovery series Curiosity. We'll be looking forward to seeing how Discovery treats that, and thanks for taking the time today.
Right, every Sunday at 8 o'clock.
Every Sunday at 8 o'clock. A theoretical physicist who knows how to get in his promo. I like that.
Well, today we're going to talk about one of the great instruments of science, the Voyager spacecraft. If you were to list the handful of spacecraft that has changed our worldview, changed our understanding of the universe and the solar system, the Voyager spacecraft would be perhaps number one. Some people don't remember it, but it scored a grand slam through the solar system. Most space probes are lucky to go by one planet. The Voyager spacecraft went by Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and they're still chugging away. That's right, they're still beaming messages from deep, deep, deep space. They're just about to leave the heliosphere that demarcates the end of the solar wind of the solar system. And if you go to the internet and type in Voyager, you'll see some of the gorgeous photographs. The first photographs taken a close-up of the rings of Saturn, the great blue spot of Neptune, the close-ups, motion picture close-ups of the red spot of Jupiter. And the moons, my God, the moons. We used to think that the gas giants were interesting and the moons were boring. Now we realize it's the opposite. About 100 moons orbiting the various gas giants, much more interesting than the planets themselves. Who would have thought? Europa, a moon of Jupiter, has a liquid ocean on it beneath its ice cover, and it may have life. That's right. Forget Mars. Life in the solar system may be found on Europa underneath the ice cover, a liquid ocean heated up by tidal forces coming from Jupiter. If you want to see volcanic activity, look at Io, another moon of Jupiter. If you want to look at another moon that has an atmosphere, well, look at Titan, a moon of Saturn. All these splendorous discoveries were made by the Voyager spacecraft. However, to be fair, we should also point out there's a controversy. A controversy about the Voyager spacecraft because it had a plaque on board, a plaque that was designed by Carl Sagan and others. In the plaque, it talked about life on Earth. It had a drawing of a man and a woman, a drawing of the Voyager spacecraft, and a map triangulating the position of our solar system with regards to the stars in the heavens. In other words, a map that said, here we are. We are here. This is where the Voyager spacecraft came from. Well, what do you think the aliens are going to do if they pick up the Voyager spacecraft? We saw that in the movie Star Trek 1. If you saw the very first Star Trek movie, in that movie, the aliens from outer space, they pick up Voyager, and they see the invitation, come and get us. And so that's what the aliens do. They soup up the Voyager spacecraft, which is now called Voyager, send it back to the Earth with superpowers, almost destroying the Earth in the process. So some people think it's a bad idea to have the plaque on the Voyager spacecraft because it advertises our existence to aliens, and who knows what the alien intentions are. Personally, I don't think that alien life in outer space is going to be hostile. They will have had thousands of years to iron out their problems. They would be thousands to millions of years more advanced than us if they could reach us from stars that are many, many light years away. They're very advanced, and they've had millennia to work out sectarian, fundamentalist, racial hatreds that have characterized their rise from the swamp. And that's why I think they're going to be benevolent. However, there's always a chance that they're not going to be benevolent. After all, look what happened to the great Aztec Empire when Montezuma met Cortez. Well, Montezuma, the leader of the Aztecs, made one of the greatest blunders in the history of civilization. Montezuma thought that Cortez, a conquistador from Spain, was a god riding on a horse. And the Aztecs had never seen a horse before. In fact, the Native Americans had never seen a horse before. The horses you see in these cowboy Indian movies were imported by the Spaniards. There were no horses in the New World. So, of course, the Aztecs thought that Cortez must be a god of some sort. Big mistake. Big mistake. Within a few months, the entire Aztec civilization had crumbled. Montezuma was imprisoned and later killed. Gold was plundered from the Aztecs, and the whole Aztec civilization, which rose from the jungle over thousands of years, was destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. Well, some people think that if we meet aliens from outer space, it's going to be like David versus Goliath. We'll be David, and Goliath will be the aliens. Well, I don't know. Some people think it would be more like Goliath versus Bambi. If they're going to be that advanced, we're going to be more like Bambi compared to them. Well, no need to fear because of the fact that I personally believe that there are a lot of planets out there to be harvested without pesky natives like us. If you're an alien looking for natural resources, you're not going to bother with the Earth because there are a lot of uninhabited planets out there. So don't worry. In other words, even if the aliens pick up the plaque on the Voyager, they may simply say, not interested.
Welcome to the program, Michio Kaku. Nice to see you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, glad to be on.
The future of the mind. This is, I think, a subject which is so difficult for us to comprehend. And you find yourself in a feedback loop of stupidity. For me. The premise is that the mind is something that we will find downloadable to some extent.
That's right. Think of all the college courses that we flunked when we were younger, right? All the courses that we cut. We might be able to have a play button. You hit the play button and you upload mathematics. You upload calculus right into your brain. This has now been done on a small level with mice. We can actually upload memories.
Is that mouse's name Algernon by any chance? Because I know how this ends.
And eventually we're going to be doing it with primates and eventually perhaps with Alzheimer's patients. We're going to have a brain pacemaker that will allow us to upload memories into a damaged hippocampus located right here so that people that have Alzheimer's will have memory again. And so this is one of the objectives of being able to upload a memory.
That's incredible. So the idea would be, while one side of the industry focuses on maybe fixing the pathways biologically, there is a whole other science that is working at this through data.
That's right. We want to be able to decipher the thinking brain and perhaps connect the brain to a robot or a machine. Think of Stephen Hawking, my colleague. He's totally paralyzed. He has a chip in his right frame. Next time you see him on TV, look at his glasses. There's a chip there that picks up radio waves from his mind, transfers it to a laptop, and he can type. Mentally type. And you can now
this is something that is present now. That is the technology to do it now. And how does the chip in his glasses pick up a radio wave that he generates from his brain?
Because it's very close to the brain. Now, for other patients, we put it directly on the brain itself, a chip about the size of a dime, connecting that chip to a laptop, and then the person can operate a wheelchair, operate household appliances, surf the web, answer emails, even if he is totally paralyzed.
That's incredible. Is his chip not in his brain because his brain is so strong? Like it just, like if you put like the chip right on his brain, the chip would be like, "Stop yelling! I can hear you. You're so brainy." But in terms of amounts of data, I would imagine, like, you know, we're accustomed to this idea that, oh, we've mapped the human genome. What is the amount of data that the human genome encompasses?
It's peanuts compared to the complexity of the brain. Realize that what sits on your shoulder is the most complex object in the known universe.
In terms of computing power that we have now, in terms of trying to disseminate the amount of activity and data that is flowing through the brain, where would we need to get to before that is a feasible transaction?
We would have to build a computer the size of a city block, cooled by a river, energized by a nuclear power plant to mimic the computational power of your brain, which does it for 20 watts. So when someone calls you a dim bulb, that's a compliment.
That is a compliment. 20 watts of power to power the brain. So why is that? What is the energy source then of the brain that we are unable to figure out?
Well, for most people, it's just a few hamburgers.
Really?
Will supply the energy for the thinking brain. However, we don't know how the brain actually functions. The brain is not a computer in this normal sense of the word. There's no operating system. There's no Pentium chip. There's no Windows. There's no subroutines. It's a learning machine. It learns.
Can it exist outside of us?
Well, if President Barack Obama's brain initiative succeeds, we will have a CD-ROM. Last year, President
Barack Obama... Guy's got a brain initiative? Can't run a website. What are you talking about? You got a brain initiative?
They want to dump $1 billion to map all the pathways of the human brain to solve the question of mental illness like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and one day they may have a CD-ROM with all your personality, all your neurons on it that will live on after you die. In other words, some form of immortality is a possibility, that consciousness may exist even outside the human body. It'd be kind of nice, right? Living forever?
I'm sorry, I'm thinking of like 300 years from now, like, you know, your people, that your kids, and kids, like taking you out of a CD jacket. Let's hang with Grandpa for a little bit.
And your descendants will be able to have a chat with you. You know, your personality traits, your mannerisms will be there.
Is all consciousness are these data points?
Well, in some sense, in this line of approach, your personality, your quote, soul would be reduced to information. Digital information that in some sense your great-great-great-grandkids can access to have an evening conversation with you.
But don't you think there's going to be some special sauce in there that we don't know about that is more than just the functions?
Yeah, there's always the wild cards.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example of a wild card. If you're hit in the left part of the brain...
And now you're just getting weird.
Certain people develop enormous mathematical powers. They become super geniuses. Now, of course, this is not the average blow to the brain. Don't go home tonight and sock yourself in the brain hoping to become a super genius.
That's smart.
But it's happened before, that these people have enormous mathematical abilities. And we think it's because the brain has lost its ability to forget. A photographic memory is not because memories die down with time or stay vigorous. We forget how to forget. The forgetting mechanism itself is disabled in these individuals. Right. So it's like a tape recorder that just keeps on taping and never erasing.
And does it run out of memory at that point, or will it continue to go?
It just continues to go. These people can remember a day 30 years ago on a Tuesday, on an afternoon, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they can tell you what book they were reading on what page.
So why would our brains then not do that all the time? Why wouldn't you want to buy the brain with the most memory?
Because eventually it trips you up. You get memory overflow. You get paralyzed with so many memories coming at you. Many of these individuals, for example, have a hard time keeping an ordinary job because they simply remember too much. We forget for a reason, believe it or not, because it's good for our survival. It's good for evolution to forget.
Yeah, that's what booze is, yeah. This stuff is incredible, and we are on the cusp of some really, truly amazing and historic things, are we not?
I think so, right. This is the golden age of brain research.
I'm very excited about this. The future of the mind. It's on the bookshelves now. Very, very fascinating. Michio Kaku, thank you so much.